Well, everybody, and welcome back to Out of the Park 23 as the Minnesota Twins. And this is our playoffs episode. So we're going to see how far the Twins are actually able to go. Round one against the Pirates was a 3-0, and probably the most tense 3-0 I've probably ever had. So game one was DeGrom gives up a home run in the first and a home run in the second. We're down 5-0. And it's just, oh boy, here we go. And we get one back in the bottom of the second, then just nothing for that super long period of time. We couldn't get anything going against this guy, Will Crow. And it was just kind of, uh-oh. So I wasn't using any of my big gun relievers. I was kind of like, well, I mean, we're down 5-1. No reason to burn White or burn Presley or Duran. And then we get to the eighth. We get a couple of hits. And then I think Buxton gets a big 2-run single. And I think that was even with bases loaded. I think we still could have done more damage there. We weren't quite able to. Then we get to the bottom of the ninth. And 2 outs. Joey Gallo does exactly why we traded for him. This was a massive bomb. This was like 450-foot home run or something. It was nutty. And then in the 10th, Buxton gets a hit. I have him steal second. There's an error on the throw. He gets then to third, and then Hunt hits the sac fly to win the game. So really just a crazy, crazy game for us where we get 6 innings out of DeGrom. We're pretty much completely fine as far as our main relievers. The only one that we had to use was White because in the 10th inning of a tie game, I'm not going to take my chances with anybody lower tier than him. So that is what we did. Good, ended up being a good result in game one, but it was tight. And then game two was almost a little bit of an inverse where we gave up 1 in the first again. And then we scored 2 in the 4th inning. Yeah, Kirilloff hit a bases loaded double, I believe, to put us up 2-1. And then Marquez was honestly really cruising for a while this game. But then in the 8th, he gives up a leadoff double. And I was just kind of like, okay, this is a little sketchy. So I went to Duran, and I think what I need to kind of remind myself is that whenever I'm playing, I can't bring in Duran in the middle of an inning. This always happens to me. Of just always that run scores. There's always a home run or a big hit. He was able to limit the damage where he got 3 straight strikeouts, I believe, afterwards. No, what did happen? It was must have been like a couple ground balls then. And yeah, we were able to limit the damage, not let them go ahead at that point. I mean, that's why the win probability is almost 75% right there. It's because they had a guy on third with nobody out in a tie game. And then in the 11th, it was honestly pretty much the same type of win, where it was Buxton gets a hit, and then he steals second. Aranda got a kind of weaker hit, so he wasn't able to score on it because I didn't want to gamble with nobody out in the top of my order coming up. They intentionally walked Frelick, I believe. I don't remember if it shows that or not. And then Polanco comes through, and we win the game to go up 2-0 in the series. Marquez was really, really good. My bullpen was good other than the Duran triple that he gave up. Which gave us then the 2-0 lead, and then game 3 was the cleanest win for us for sure. We get 4 runs early. Buxton hit another bomb. He was the series MVP, very well deserved. He hit 2 home runs in this game, I believe. Yeah. The last one didn't matter quite as much, but okay start from Nola. Not great, not terrible. Nardi had 2 walks, which was a little rough. Moran has been very good for me yet again, where it's just like this 40 rating just feels like such a lie because yeah, he walks too many people, but I mean, look at these ERAs. Like 2023 wasn't great, but 24 was good. 25, he's been good. It's been good in the playoffs both years. Yeah, I mean that's been nice to see where he's sort of my in this series he was pretty much the when it was Reynolds, Cruz, Tatro. He was kind of the lefty I would bring in earlier because this is the kind of the lefty lefty left or switch hitter lefty lefty, and Gonzalez actually was worse against lefties than against righties. So that was sort of where he got his usage, and we end up winning the series 3-0. And what ended up happening is I was curious about what was going to happen in the other series. We're going to play Houston. We'll talk about them. They got up 2-0, so I was like, oh, this series might actually be done pretty quickly because Boston was up 2-0 as well. And I was like, are we going to then have to maybe start Gomez game 1? Which I don't really want to do. Honestly, I'm not even 100% sure if I want to start DeGrom in game 1. I have to think about this. I think I actually do because of what ends up happening here. Because the Blue Jays win 2, it forces Houston to then have to kind of continue going through their rotation, which means that we get to dodge their number 1 starter. And I want to just take advantage of having kind of that matchup advantage in most of the games now. So if we go ahead and we take a look at Houston, they're sort of the opposite of Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh, it was very much I don't think the offense is great. We gave up more runs than I was expecting to in that series, which isn't a great sign coming into this one, where you can see their bats are really what carries them. This is 7 hitters with 3 WAR or higher, including this guy, Jake Myers, who didn't hit, but was good defensively. Really that good in... Where's your 3 WAR coming from? I don't get it. How is this a 3 WAR player? 26 steals isn't gonna do that. Okay, well, I don't know. But I mean, Kyle Tucker is gonna be the MVP this year. So obviously he's a problem. Bregman coming off a really good year. This guy, Zamarripa, is another really good hitter. And it is nice that they put their 2 lefties back to back, but I'm guessing both Bregman and... Oh, you actually don't hit lefties quite as well. You murder lefties, though. So it's probably going to be something where Bregman might be seeing my lefties a decent amount to get the lefty-lefty matchups for Tucker and Alvarez. So I guess in some ways I almost don't... Oh, that's just because he only played 60 games. He was hurt. He has a 131 OPS plus. Yeah, so I mean, and then if you sort by this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 players with an OPS plus of 113 or higher. So obviously we're going to have to score runs in this series because they're going to get their runs in this series for sure. I think my strategy is going to have to be pitching-wise. It's going to be the lefties against 2, 3, 4. And it's kind of hope for the best. Pitching, on the other hand, for them, though, is quite a bit weaker. We're going to get Hunter Brown in game 1, who's given up at least 2 runs in every single one of his starts for the last month. And more than that in a decent amount of them as well. Below average pitcher, really. That's the game 1 starter. Horace Whitley. Phipps says he's been a little unlucky this year, but I mean, he hasn't, it looks like, been great. Walks too many people. So, the control's not... I mean, there's a world in which he doesn't walk a ton. I mean, there's only 1 walk in those, 5 in those 2 games. Like, I think we should have pitching mat advantages in all these games. McCullers hasn't been great. Javier's been a lot better lately. Well, he's been hit and miss. And he only has 35 stamina, so that'll be interesting. Oh, they extended him. Okay. That's not a bad deal at all. Though 17 million is probably more than I would want to pay a guy like this, because you're not gonna he's not gonna eat a ton of innings for you, even if he is really good. Like this year, to me, this 2024 is probably as good as you're really gonna get from him. And like, yeah, this is a really good season. It's 4.5 R WAR. I look at R WAR more for evaluating seasons because this is based on ERA. This is based on FIP. I like looking more at what happened for these types of things. So, yeah, I don't know that this is a guy that I would be willing to pay that type of money to. Whereas, I mean, Gomez has been, I mean, like he's had a couple of years that are kind of similar to that, and I'm paying him high end 11 million. So, yeah, like I think that's just a much better contract. So, yeah, we'll go with this kind of same setup. No injury stuff to have to really change any of our results. I'm still debating on Miranda, where I'm probably going to go back and forth of it's really, I mean, Kirilloff is the question mark. It's going to be if I can get this down to 6 years, maybe a little bit less money, or if it's something like 16 million for the probably 3 years, then maybe. But I don't know. It's so reliant on the bat to continue to be good. But admittedly, though, his ratings haven't fluctuated as much as the ratings for Kirilloff have. Because, like, one of the interesting things with Kirilloff is these things have kind of been all over the place. The eyes gone down, and like I've seen kind of these ratings jump as well, and it's just I don't know. It feels like there's been a lot more volatility in results from Kirilloff. I mean, like only a 109 WRC plus for me this year. So at least Miranda can play third at a decent enough level. The zone rating's not great. I mean, it wasn't great here this year, but it's fine. So we'll kind of have to see. He obviously doesn't walk a ton, but he's really good at the other stuff. So we'll see. I think at this point in time, I'm leaning towards extending him, but we'll see. I'm sure there'll be plenty more Miranda talk over the next couple of episodes. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go play the Houston series, and I will be back in a bit. And we are back after the Houston series, which I can really only say went a lot better than I was expecting it to. Where if we take a look at this, we started out game 1, went really well. We got 7 elite innings from DeGrom. He struggled in the 7th and the beginning of the 8th. I was thinking about having him go the full game because we had the big lead, but I didn't really want to gamble a ton with it in game 1. Just brought in Rozek to finish out the game. I didn't want to burn any of my higher end arms at this point. Their starting pitcher, unfortunately, does come down with elbow inflammation. Realistically, he pretty much missed 1 start, and honestly, I think Urquidy's the guy they threw in Game 5 who probably did a better job than what Brown was doing. Anyway, for us, Sal Frelick goes 3 for 4. Lots of people have good games. Frelick and Kirilloff hit doubles. Frelick hits a home run as well. Correa, Polanco, Kirilloff also hitting home runs. Really good offensive game for our team and pitching as well. Really good start to the series. Game 2 goes kind of slightly worse. Our offense, it's the Byron Buxton show. This is a 3-run Buxton home run, 2-run Buxton home run, and then Kirilloff hit another solo shot. We do give up 3 runs in the 4th. Marquez wasn't super sharp, but we bring in Sandy Alcantara to kind of clean up Marquez's mess in the 4th, and he was just absolutely elite. If we had been able to pick up a couple more runs, I might have just let him finish the game, but as it was, 6-3 lead, and they had their bigger guns coming up to see him a second time, I just decided to make the call to just go away from him, let my elite relievers finish the job, and that's exactly what they did. Really big outing, though, from Alcantara here to kind of give me a little bit more faith in him moving forwards. But yeah, then game 3 was a little bit of nerves for me after we lost this because our offense gets 3 runs on 4 hits, 3 of those runs coming from Frelick, or 3 of those hits coming from Frelick. And really the trends of the series at this point was their offense seemed to be picking up steam and our offense was just getting worse. We really were not able to touch Javier at all. Nola struggled, and that was kind of concerning. The Altuve injury wasn't really much of anything, I think. Um, yeah, he still played the rest of the series, so luckily that did not end up being a huge deal, even though he had to come out of that game. Or wait, did he actually not play? Oh, I didn't actually notice that he did not actually return. So that definitely might have been something. They definitely got impacted more by injuries than we did. As Lance McCullers gets hurt in game 4. Gomez has a pretty good outing. He has the rough second inning, but he battles back to be effective and give me 5 solid innings. Afterwards, Gallo gets in on the home run business in this one. Royce hits another one. And we take a 3-1 lead going into game 5 with, unfortunately, probably a mistake on my part with bullpen management because Duran's not available for game 5 after throwing 2 1/3. I definitely should not have let him go into the 9th inning. I should have just pulled him after an inning and a third, let him be available off of that. As going into game 5, you'll notice a disconnect here between this graph and this result. The reason for that is because my computer of late has been very temperamental, and after finishing this game 5, my computer force restarted, and the result of this game was not saved. However, personally, I felt like because of the fact that I fully completed the game, like I had the people cheering on the field and everything, that the correct thing to do at that point was not to just fully replay the game, but was to just sim the game because I didn't want to spend the time to have to replay the game multiple times to get the correct result of the Twins winning the game and no injuries. So the first time that I simulated the game after doing that, we won, but Jacob deGrom was hurt and Sandy Alcantara was hurt. And that's not what happened in the game that I'm kind of viewing as the counted game. So then we simulated again. We got this result and no injuries. So we're kind of going with that. But I'm going to talk about the game that actually happened because deGrom gets off to the rough start. We get behind 1-0 off the Tucker home run. In the bottom of the 4th, we have a runner on second, I believe was Polanco. And then Correa gets a 2-out hit. And I make the call to not send whoever the runner was because it was a shallow hit up the middle. Myers has this 65 arm. Didn't really want to risk it. Not a super fast runner, not a Buxton or a Lewis or something like that. And then Kirilloff hits a 3-run homer. And then that was obviously big. And then the 6th inning was kind of the other concern point of deGrom gives up. I think we had 2 guys on at that point with nobody out, and then I go to Moran to face Tucker and Alvarez because Nardi wasn't fully available, and Moran's gotten the job done for me, and he did so again. And from there, we go to the bottom of the 6th. Correa hits the 3-run home run, puts the game away, and it feels good to have the former Astros be the ones to put away the Astros, as Correa and then Presley finished the game in the top of the 9th. He did give up a solo shot to Yordan Alvarez, and we win the game 6-2. So now we will go into facing Boston in the World Series. So obviously, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to play the game. I just want to look at Boston. All right. So Boston is very similar to us, in all honesty. That top third offense, least runs allowed. The pitching staff is really good. The back end of their bullpen, which is what you're going to see the most in the playoffs, all had very good years. Whitlock as well. This Wilkeman Gonzalez guy, all good. They have a lefty. And all of their starters were all good this year. Montas is in Boston in this save, and they extended him. he's been good every year. He hasn't had kind of that elite year. Phipps says that he was pretty good this year. He should have been pretty good, but there were looks like some BABIP issues potentially, or their fielding issues that led to him not having quite as good of a year. But even then, Kopech, good year. Tanner Hawk, good year. This Raniel Raudas guy, good year. There's really no weak spots pitching staff wise, outside of a couple of these middle relief guys that if I'm Boston, I'm not using any of them in a close game, barring a pitching injury. So I can't expect to be able to feast on some of these weaker middle relief pitchers in this series. It's going to have to be scoring runs against good pitchers, which I think my team can do. The fun thing about this lineup for me personally is that the first World Series I won when I did my Baltimore save in Out of the Park 21 had Judson Fabian and Brandon Marsh in that outfield, so that's fun for me to see. But obviously, this is a good lineup. There's not kind of those elite high-end bats like what Houston had. It's kind of a lot of this kind of 130 to 105. Nick York had a really good year in limited playing time, and obviously this is 2 games. But the thing here to note is that there's not really like a huge lefty bat that I have to worry about, and their lefties are split up. But neither Marsh or Meyer are really big offensive threats that I'm like super concerned about. So there's not really kind of that role for a Moran to come in and be my guy who shuts down the lefties, because there just aren't lefties that really need that in this lineup. And I think this should be a really good series. I think it's pretty 50-50 who wins it. I'm excited to be back shortly with that result. See you in a bit. And we are back after the World Series, and what a World Series it was. Starting off in October, the Twins fall down 1-0, where we played a really good game for 95% of it. White came in, shut down threats in the 6th. Both White and Duran struggle with walks. This is unfortunately a theme of the series. But really the biggest problem here is obviously the Presley giving up the walk-off home run to the pinch hitter, Franchi Cordero, who I actually don't think played in a blowout. But so for whatever reason, they never used him after he hits a walk-off home run. That's a little crazy. But yeah, I mean, just a game that really I feel like we should have won, but we didn't. That's, I mean, really all I can say about that. So we fall down 1-0, come back with a vengeance, absolute vengeance in game 2. But it comes at a pretty hefty price, namely Jacob deGrom was then no longer eligible to be used in this series after the injury. We do win the game. Alcantara wasn't great. Rozek does come out and pitch 4 very good innings to, funny enough, get a save in the 11-1 game. One of my favorite save types is because if you finish a game pitching 3+ innings, that's what happened. Really, probably one of the bigger moments of the game was when we were able to. Actually, no, that really isn't that big. This game is just kind of a blowout, where not really a ton else to say. We get to Kopech, and yeah, we win the game 11-1 in a blowout. The call-up was Jonathan Sprinkle, who was very, very good in AAA, was hit and miss in the majors for me this year, but was just the best pitcher I felt like that was available to us. Game 3 was really the Tanner Houck show. We just could not touch him at all. We loaded the bases off of 3 walks from Hernandez in the 8th, but couldn't get anything done. Polanco with that big strikeout. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything, and then Miranda after that. This is really the only bad game Miranda has in the entire series, to be honest. Nola was kind of not great, not terrible. Jonathan Sprinkle does get injured here, where it was a day-to-day injury where he ended up missing Game 4 and Game 5. Oh yeah, Kirilov stole a base in this game. That was pretty funny. But yeah, so not looking great for us, down 2-1 at that point. But then we come back and we make it be a 2-2 series. Alex Kirilov with a massive grand slam. Just a really, really big third inning for us. And then we just kind of kept it going after that. Pitching, pretty good performance by Gomez. Duran, 3 walks again. Really, he struggled in this series against Boston. He really struggles. 8 walks in the series total. Like, honestly, like, Moran just has been huge for me in this playoffs. I've really just been a guy that I felt like I could go to get people out, both lefties and righties. And that's a really good development for us moving forward, where we probably will be able to have 3 good lefties in our bullpen. And I won't have to worry about having Rosette kind of be a guy that I'm thinking about sort of the lefty matchups, but he's really just kind of can be the long guy in the bullpen. And we can continue to do that. Colby White did get hurt in this game. It was just a day-to-day thing. All that he missed was Game 5. It did put us in not a great spot in Game 5 because we're down 2 relievers that are decent. I mean, Sprinkle I probably would have put on the IL if I felt like I had a good option to replace him. But I just didn't really feel like I did. And losing White hurts probably more because he's kind of really one of the big back end pieces for me, even though the control was a little iffy in this series. But yeah, and then funnily enough, we then win another game by the exact same score, 7-4. Not a great start from Marquez. He really turns it around after a really bad first inning, where we kind of got lucky to only get out of that giving up the 1 run. Entirely honest. Miranda has a massive game here, 3 for 3 with 2 doubles and a home run. We can't really ask for much more for that for a player. Jonathan Miranda does get his one kind of little appearance. The Polanco injury is kind of an interesting one as far as sort of a thought experiment goes, because if we take a look at this injury, it's foot soreness, and the only thing it influences is running. So the fact that I was using him as my designated hitter made me feel good about continuing to play him. And sort of the other part of it that's a little tough to admit, but I think teams would say this as well, is I'm not planning on bringing Polanco back next year. I can't justify this contract for, especially a guy he's a DH. He's a DH, backup second baseman, shortstop. So the fact that I'm not playing him anywhere means that the bat would have to be, 160 OPS plus consistently for me to even be thinking about that type of contract. And yeah, he had this outlier year in 24 where he had an absolutely massive year. But other than that, it's this kind of 116, 117, had the down year in 23. There's just no way that you can pay that type of contract to him, which meant that I was willing to risk a re-injury to it because he's a guy that I want nothing to do with coming out of the year. He's going to get a qualifying offer, and that'll be it. Sal Frelick has had a pretty good playoffs for me as well, and a little bit of a rough split there, but ends the playoffs with over 1,000 OPS. Kirilov definitely had some big moments. He hit a 2-run home run in this game as well. And yeah, so that gives us the 3-2 lead going into Game 6. I did kind of go back and forth on the call of who to start in this game. I went with Alcantara, which was a mistake, as he gets deleted in the third inning. Yeah, it's only 2 earned runs, but it's 5 hits. Just was ultimately not the right decision. Michael Kopech gets hurt in the first inning. Oh, that injury still pending. That'll be interesting. I hope this isn't like a torn UCL or something like that for Boston's sake. I do wonder what impact this has on the way that Game 7 goes, because they did have to use a decent amount of innings out of their bullpen in this game. So, really, they kind of win this game sort of like the game that I win with DeGrom. It's the win the game at a cost, which is really to the bullpen here. Whereas for me, yeah, I lose the game. Alcantara gets beat up, but I don't burn anybody here that's important, in the sense of Rozek is my long guy, and you never want to be relying on a long guy in a game 7 situation unless you're like in the 15th, 16th inning of the game and you're at the point where you need him to kind of go for a little while potentially. But if it's a 9 or 10 inning game, this isn't, for as good as Rozek really has been over his time with me, he's not the guy that I'm going to go to get, like, you know, that one clutch inning worth of outs. I mean, maybe I should, considering his playoff run here is just absurd. See, this is what, 7 1/3, 9 1/3, 11 1/3 innings, 2 hits, 1 walk. I mean, outstanding playoff performance from Aaron Rozek, for sure. Definitely ate a lot of important innings for me, but he wasn't the guy I was going to turn to in a game 7. That's Colby White, that's Joan Duran, that's Aaron, that's Nardi, it's Moran. So none of these are guys that were going to get used in game 7, barring a weird situation that I didn't want to plan around. So I feel good about that, the way that I played that. I apologize if you can hear the cat in the background. She's adorable, but kind of annoying at times. All right, so game 7 was crazy, especially at the beginning of the game. So I'm start Aaron Nola knowing full well that he's on a super short leash, because I just don't really trust him in the playoffs. He really hasn't had any point in time. I wonder if, can I look at, okay, postseason. Here we are. Like, yeah, he had the great run in 22 with Philadelphia, but for me, he just hasn't been good in any playoff situation. And that's concerning for a team like me, where it's obviously, we're in a situation where we're in the World Series back-to-back years. I've made the playoffs all 4 years of the save. And I'd like my team moving forward as well to have a guy throwing game 7 I don't really trust. That's not great. Honestly, the other thought that I had was, do I just start Duran and try to get a couple of innings out of him? But I was like, oh, the walks have been a problem. Walks 3 more in this game, gives up a 3-run homer after we get a big 3-run homer to go ahead from Sal Frelick. In the third, we get one of those hilarious BS home runs at Fenway Park, where Miranda kind of drops one that kind of just barely falls over there, gives us a 4-run lead. I get myself in a situation where it's like, okay, I'm pulling Nola, and the fact that I pulled him in the third made me want to go to Duran in that situation, because I wanted to get 2 innings out of him. That was what the thought process basically was. We get 2 out of Duran, we get 2 out of Nardi, we get 1 out of Presley, 1 out of White, and then kind of figure out maybe the one other inning that would need. But Duran was awful. He walks 3 guys, gives up a home run, and I have to then go to White at that point, who I think he comes in with the bases loaded, only gives up one in the next inning, but and luckily we were able to hold them from there. But it was a lot of walks. I mean, you could see that those two guys walked 5 people in this game. I mean, you really can't do that, especially, and really our offense proves it too, because we scored 13 runs on 12 hits, and there was a point where we had in the 6th inning we had scored 10 runs on 7 hits. And yeah, one of those is an error, but they walked 6 guys in the game. And this is sort of why I talk about the importance of that injury. Is Feliz threw 2 2/3 innings the day before and only has 30 stamina. So he was not really ready for this game, I think, and we mash him. Absolutely. Where maybe they should have gone to somebody other than him and maybe it ends differently. But a huge grand slam from Jorge Polanco was just a great moment for us, where it was the tie game, I believe. No, we just got ahead by 1. I think it would have been 6-5, and then just a massive grand slam gives me a 5-run lead at that point. And really the person that I'm super glad gets the win in this game is Indigo Diaz, because those 2 innings were absolutely massive. Gives me 2 1/3 perfect innings after so Duran is burnt, White is burnt, and really I didn't want to be going to Nardi, or Moran is probably the other guy that I considered at that point, but it was in the spot where I believe he kind of came in around here, so it was kind of all of the righties due up, and Marsh is just a guy that I kind of ignored during the series. I really kind of ignored the lefty matchups, unless it was like a 2-out situation in this series. And then we got the job done. The bullpen, after, ironically, I got out of maybe 2 of my 3 most trusted arms in Duran and White, was the last, let's see, that's 4 1/3 innings were perfect. And the offense kind of kept things going, and we took advantage of the walks and the errors more than they did. And I think that's really the deciding factor here, is that walks always hurt. They always do. And yeah, really I think the biggest thing that I need to think about coming out of this is Joey Gallo was awful in the postseason. Like, I really don't have any other way to say it other than that. Yeah, like the batting average being this low is whatever, I don't care about that, because that's just who he is, right? He hits bombs and he walks. But I think he only had 1 home run in the playoffs. Let's see, yeah, we could look at the postseason here. Oh, he actually doesn't have a ton of postseason at bats. But yeah, 15 games, get 3 home runs in the entire playoff stretch, which really you expect more from him. I mean, Kirilloff hit 5. He had a really good playoff for me. Honestly, a lot of my bats really turned up. Really, outside of Hunt, who was really bad in the playoffs, but sort of as that contract kind of proves, I just don't have any other good options really at catcher. There really weren't good situations to pinch hit for him for the most part either, where because of how good of a catcher he is, it's a thing where I don't really want to pull him unless it's a really good situation. Something where it's, you've got first and second, nobody out, 1 out. Later on in the game against a righty to go to Miranda, or an Aranda. Man, that's kind of annoying at times. So, yeah, that's the World Series. We do win back-to-back World Series. Massive for the team. I definitely have more concerns going into next year because we're going to lose DeGrom. We're going to lose Polanco. We might lose Presley. I'm not sure what's going to happen here with his player option. That'll be interesting. I don't know how aggressive I would be to bring him back if he opts out. Because if he opts out, that means he would want more than 15 million, which is a little dicey, I think, for me. Maybe with winning the World Series, I'll get more of a budget bump than the 20-ish million that I usually get. So we'll kind of have to see what ends up going on there. But massive win for us to go back to back, have another good year. I mean, we're a 90-plus win team. We extended Gomez, who was good for me in the playoffs. Not great, but good. But for this being kind of the first time I've really relied on him in the playoffs, I mean, all of these outings are ones I'll take. Actually, this isn't playoffs. It's just these two where playoffs starts, and they were both very good. Like, you can't really complain about that from a guy that's the back end of your bullpen or back end of your rotation. Like, I think his high end is probably like a 3, but I'll take that. Marquez is a guy that I generally like as a guy who I think can be my 1 moving forward. I mean, that's sort of the deal I signed him to, right? Is this type of contract. He really needs to be a 1 or a 2, I think. But yeah, that is the conclusion of the 2025 season. We do have an extension offer out to Jose Miranda. I thought I did. Okay, yeah, here we are. It's 6 years, 92 million. The last 2 years both have team options attached to them. I believe it's something like 7, 11, 15, 19, 20, 20. So that would take it through kind of that 2021 season, which is kind of that big reset point, I think, of where a lot of my big contracts are expiring around that time. So we'll kind of see how some of this next year's goes. We still have 3 more years of Buxton. It was really nice having him actually healthy for a full postseason run. He was really, really good. See the OPS of over 1,000 in the playoffs. Yet he had a very good playoff season, made a lot of good plays for me defensively. Honestly, all of my outfielders were really, really good defensively. So it's nice to have the type of defense that we have. But that's going to be it from your back-to-back World Series champions, the Minnesota Twins. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.